Hi, Gary.
How are you?
I think Gary's a regular around here by now.
Yes.
Hey, Gary is famous. He
Yeah.
is a superstar.
Yeah, well, infamous.
Famous.
Yeah, memorable maybe.
Yeah.
It's people. Somebody called me a celebrity again yesterday, and I go, truly, I'm the kid next door, and I think maybe that's why I am a little more memorable than some.
Well, you are, and I love that you're a kid at any age, and I would love to follow your footsteps.
Well,
I
thank you.
think it's, so. Tell us. I heard that you're writing a book, or you have a couple books coming out. What are they?
Yeah, I got a couple of new books. One is actually a revision. I had a publisher a number of years ago create a book called The Book of Garyisms. And what she was doing is taking all of the things that people started hearing me repeat over and over again, and they put it in the book and they plagiarized in the book, Stephen Covey. And I can't publish it, or they're still doing it. It's on Amazon. I don't own it. I don't promote it. And so I realized that just the Garyisms themselves wasn't enough. So what I'm doing is going back, all of the sayings, like, are you a participant or are you a spectator? It's your choice, is then do a chapter of what that means and really create the usability of that in people's lives if they were so choose. And then the second book is something that I've been thinking about. It's called The Amazing Power of One. Everything comes down to one, but those are building blocks. And what do we do with those ones in our life to create whatever the result is that we want? And so just breaking those things down, and the old adage, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Right.
And I thought about something else the other day. I said, how do you feed an elephant? One peanut at a time.
I have visions of other things happening after the elephant eats, but I get you.
Yeah, well, somebody gave me, my birthday was this week, and they gave me an elephant. I've never had an elephant as an animal guide, but there's an elephant now on my desk with a money tree in it. I guess it's prosperity elephant, or in a culture. So, but yeah, so I'm just looking at the front part of the elephant. I'm not going to go to the back.
That's right.
So when is your books coming out? Are you doing this on electronically, paperback, audio? When is it coming out?
They're both scheduled to come out by my boot camp in September. So
Okay.
that will really be the launch. My Beaver book, the How a Beaver Saved My Life, just came out in audiobook. So it's out on Spotify and all that kind of stuff. I don't understand it. I have people, they tell me it's out there in cyberspace somewhere. And but that's something that just released in the last 2 months. We haven't even really announced it. And we were going to do it this month, and somehow it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. So did they make you sit down with a microphone and record yourself?
It's really funny because they wanted me to read it, and I go, don't put a teleprompter in front of me, because that's not who I am. You guys know I don't do notes. I don't do, this is what I do. And so we started, and they said, okay, now we believe you. You're going to do the very beginning intro, and then we're going to do the voice guy.
Then you'll have the Jules voices. Hello, I'm Jules.
Welcome
So,
to chapter 1.
Yes, you have the voice for it.
I have recorded some audiobooks. It's actually a lot of fun. I enjoy it, but it's actually a lot of work, because if you you need to be in like a soundproof room. If you're not in like a professional booth, if you're just doing it at home, it has to be like the soundproof foam, and you mess up, or if there's like a siren outside, you got to stop, you got to take it back and start over. So yeah, it's more effort than people think.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
I was in a professional sound booth.
Yeah,
And, but it was like, yeah, this is not going to be pretty. So let's do something where people will actually listen. So,
Well, I hear that the cheapest way to make a sound booth is with egg curtains.
Yes, that's
So-
right.
you can do that.
Because I currently am in an office, which, by the way, Sam, I hope you noticed that my internet has improved. So
yeah,
Yes.
hopefully, yeah, I hope so. I pray. But yeah, but I still am in a concrete room because I'm in Mexico, so.
There she
But-
goes, dropping that into the conversation again.
Yeah, I gotta quit echoing. Right, but that's cool. Well, so good. So Gary, you're still in South Denver, right? So you're in Littleton?
We actually moved, about a year ago, we moved to Parker.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Okay. How do you like Parker?
We really do. When we moved here, Parker was truly a cow town. And now everything's new, big wide streets, and no, we really love it. Stores, restaurants, everything is so much closer, and we have everything out here. So
Nice. Yeah, Parker's a great town. I really love that area, and you guys have some nice little street festivals and stuff like that.
And the craziness of the real estate market here, our home in less than a year has increased over $100,000.
Yes.
And I'm just going, really?
Yeah. Well, nobody can afford to build them anymore.
Yeah.
It is nuts. So
Yeah.
They're running to Mexico too.
Yeah, well, I did sell my house and we bought our house in Mexico, but we are looking to rebuy more properties in Colorado. But I told Bruce, I'm like, how are we going to buy properties in Colorado? They're all getting bought up,
Yeah.
But I'm glad I have my house in Green Valley Ranch. I'm glad I sold it. So.
Fresh new energy, mountain and sea.
There
Mountain
you go.
and sea. Yes, I want to live near the mountains. He was looking at Idaho Springs recently, and I'm like, I think that's about an hour from Denver. So I don't know if that's going to work, but.
Hello, Howard.
Hi there.
Howard.
Hey, Howard.
And Gary, do you know Howard Niswitz?
I don't believe so.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, Howard is a very seasoned consultant in compensation and systems, and he is out of the New York area,
Oh,
in New
okay.
Jersey.
Yep.
And you're really cold and snowy right now as well.
We're in between. Today's going to actually be kind of warm. It's strange. Today's actually going to be in the 60s, and then they're predicting these snow flurries on Friday. So who knows? Weather's bouncing all over the place these days, but we'll take it.
Yeah, that's a good reminder, because and then we have some people joining now, and just in case something happens, because I have a snowstorm outside my window.
Oh, great.
And we got 6 inches of snow last night, and it's still falling. So which I'm glad we're getting moisture, so which is good.
Well, when I
This
got up this morning, it was
weird.
-4.
Oh my God, you guys, you're freaking me out. I don't even know what that feels like right now. It's like mid 80s here. I can't imagine.
Lucky you.
Yeah, so I do miss the snow though, because I like the decorations and well, I guess all the decorations are coming down.
Over.
And now that we've had Valentine's Day, so I
Yeah.
guess now it's time for what? March. So now let's get into the green.
That's right. Yeah.
St. Patty's Day.
All right. Well, we have about 2 more minutes before we get started, and people are some of our guests are joining. So, but yeah. So Gary, just once again for our listeners, I mean, your 2 new books that are coming out, what are the titles of those books?
Well, it's Gary, the Book of Garyism Revisited.
Yeah.
And then The Amazing Power of One.
Right. And those will be released by June.
September.
Oh, September. Okay.
Yeah, for my boot camp.
Yeah, and we'll hear more about your boot camp this at the end here. So, and let everybody know about that. So, going on. This would be your 41st.
41st.
Yeah,
Oh,
well
wow.
established.
In person, right?
In person. Yes.
Wow.
Hmm.
Good for you guys. In person, but probably, a little more spacing and stuff like that.
Colorado, we're totally opened up. There are pockets, but it really, you look at the Super Bowl,
Yeah.
you know, how
Yeah,
many,
look at the Super Bowl.
and then they say mask up, you go, no.
Let me tell you, in California, that didn't even change anything. They're like Super Bowl next day, they're like back to our restrictions, guys. I'm like, what?
Yeah, one day hiatus, huh?
Yeah, so it makes a
What's
lot
the
of,
big dog? It works for me, you know?
Well,
right.
I'm glad to hear that.
So we are at the top of the hour, and it's time to kick things off. So Jules, will you take us down this road?
Oh, I suppose so. I will jump in here. All right, everyone. Well, I want to officially welcome you all to the People Strategy Forum. So great to have you all here. I'm seeing some familiar faces and a couple of new people as well. So if you've never been here, or maybe you're listening to our new podcast, or you're coming to us from a different streaming platform later on, welcome. We love having you all here. And if you are kind of unfamiliar with what happens here, we get together every week. We usually have a guest speaker. I will introduce you to him in just a moment. But as you can see, if you have been a regular here, we're a little new and improved. We have a new logo, and our new motto here is to engage, energize, and elevate your employees and your company. And that's what we're going to be touching on each and every week. Today, our topic is the 3 keys to success in any business. And I want to introduce myself officially. I'm Jules. I'm the moderator. I help with all the questions and comments in the chat. So if you have anything that you want to say to our speaker or any of our panelists today, do write it down in the chat, address it to all attendees and panelists so that everyone can see your question. And yeah, we like to keep it conversational. So put your comments in there, any questions. We're going to try to get through as many questions as we can. And as you can see, all these lovely faces on here. We're just missing one person, Sumit, today, but hopefully he'll be able to jump back on next week. Now, I want to introduce you to Char. Char is getting more and more tanned every week down in Mexico, living the expat life. We're all very jealous. But she,
Yeah, I'm definitely going to change that picture. That picture's getting too old. But yeah, I think I'll get a good one with the tan before too long.
There you go.
Change it up.
Yeah.
Not familiar with Char. She has an HR background. She's been a career coach. She also was running Rocky Mountain Health Advocates, but today we learned that that it's getting a bit of a name change, a bit of a makeover as well.
I call it Mountain and Sea Health Advocacy, and I also am doing career coaching with all these expats that are moving down all over the place, and it's called Mountain and Sea Career Strategy, because all of us need to learn how to adapt to this new world today. So it's been pretty exciting.
For sure.
We need that direction. And Howard, Sam kind of gave a little intro if you were kind of hopping on before the recording, but we always love having Howard here. Howard is on the East Coast, and he is a compensation advisor who works alongside the team at Comp Team, and he has decades of experience implementing new and improved compensation programs for all types of companies in different areas of finance and technology industries and a lot more. And Sam is our founder of Comp Team and also this whole forum. So Sam's the reason why we are always here each and every week. Now, Sam is a compensation expert, and he helps revitalize compensation programs and talent management strategies across many different organizations. So now that we know all our panelists, let me introduce you to Gary Barnes, who is our special guest speaker today. And now Gary has appeared on this forum multiple times, so obviously he's very popular, in demand. We love having him back today. And if you don't know Gary, well, let me introduce you to him. He is a high performance business and sales coach. He is the founder of Gary Barnes International. He has sold $280 million in services, which I think is amazing. He has a lot going on. He has published 9 books with 2 more on the way, which you just heard about before. He's appeared in ABC, TEDx, PBS, CBS. So he's very busy, and he also runs a business boot camp each and every year. And he's also a speaker. So he has already done, what was it, Gary? Like 25 talks
25.
already this year. And he's up to like his 3rd one this week. So he's a very busy man. So we're so grateful that he was able to take some time out for us today. Again, any questions for Gary, please leave them in the chat. But I'm going to pass it on over to Gary, and welcome back. We're so happy to have you here.
Well, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. And one of the things that I really enjoy about this program, it is very conversational. It's not a monologue. It's not just talking at people. It's really communicating and building the relationships where they are. And that is something really unique in the marketplace today.
Well, one thing that's really unique about you and so important, Gary, is that you're not only so successful, but you're a real true survivor. You've survived multiple sclerosis, and so can you take us through your story in a little bit about how you became the man you are today?
One of the things that I say, I would not wish my life onto anyone, but I would not change anything because I wouldn't be the man I am today if I did. And so my early background was psychology and theology in college. And so obviously I transitioned to real estate and spent 9 years in real estate in Southern California. So Jules, back out there. I'm a native Californian, which is unique. In '84, we decided to move to Colorado. And in that process, I created one of the very first financial planning firms in the country before there was an industry. And so ran it for over 30 years. And about 16, 17 years ago, I just, it was a burnout and decided that I was going to do something different. But right in the middle of the career as a financial planner, in 1988, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Notice I didn't say I had or have, I said I was diagnosed with, which did not take on the identity. And was told I would be dead or in a wheelchair within 10 years. And so I'm 30 some years plus. And so now I say I'm on bonus time. And about 15 years ago, people kept coming to me and asking me how I built my businesses to such a high level so quickly. And I started doing the proverbial buy me a hamburger and I'll tell you. And then it just has grown and organically. So it's like, many of us have the story that we didn't plan out where we are today. There is more of an organic. And now, as I've been able to travel. I'm an international speaker, author. I've always said too, once you start believing and really engaging into your own bio and introduction, you're in trouble. Your PR is your PR. And I am the kid next door. I want everybody and anyone to realize that if I could do it, they can do it. And I think that's the real message is, there is nothing special, but everything special about each of us. But it doesn't mean that you have to have some kind of, magic wand or be a member of what I call the Lucky Sperm Club, to be born into the right family in the right time with the right money. No, you can be anything that you've been given the inspiration to be, if you choose to.
But I don't want to discount it though, Gary, because the one thing that is exceptional about you as a person is your resilience. I mean, so when you were going through that diagnosis, I mean, you didn't go down the tubes there. You were inspired. You moved forward, and you've developed a business now where you're an international exposure. You're known internationally. You have boot camps where hundreds of people attend every year. So tell us, how did you overcome the trauma? It's just, I think this is so important for us all to know because of the situation that we've all gone through a very tough time.
Well, go ahead.
And I think that is your experience is very valuable and it can be very valuable to our listeners.
And what turned into the first book is the MS story. It's called How a Beaver Saved My Life. And the thing why that gets most requested, in fact, TEDx called me to do TEDx around that story, is I created it into an adversity story, not a multiple sclerosis story. And part of me is I'm ornery. And you tell me I have to do something, it's more than likely not going to happen. And so there's a personality within me, but it was right in the middle of my financial planning career. And I just knew there had to be another way around it because I was too busy. My calendar did not have any kind of detour road, out of the bridge out, whatever. And it was just something I said, okay, I had this epiphany. Number one, never to own the illness, the identity side of it. But the other side was the concept that there's always a way around something. It will never be perfect, but will it be enough? And so I have fallen off 2 stages. I during the initial episode of when I had one of the very first MRIs in the state of Colorado, but I had gone totally numb from the neck down. I lost all feelings. I lost the ability to write, to walk. If I couldn't see my feet, I would trip. I had to readjust. And so this it really is the connection of what I really train around of creating your vision. If your vision and your mission is strong enough, is really impactful for you, you're willing to go through just about anything to get there. And as a kid, one of my favorite songs was The Impossible Dream. And one of the stanzas inside that song is to be willing to march into hell for a heavenly cause. And so I put myself out there. It wasn't just about me. My boys were 7 and 9. I went and built a vision around watching them grow up, having children, being able to play with my grandchildren. And because of that, I have not been able to do some things. Like when I fly airplanes, I want to, do it myself, but I take another pilot with me because I want to be responsible if I was to have an episode, if there was something that I somehow was not able to be safe in the sky. And it wasn't about my safety, it was about other people in the air and those on the ground. And so how can I get, and I started realizing this too, is I wanted the experience. That was what I really wanted. I wanted the memory. And so that orneriness that I talked about was really being very focused and myopic in what was really, really, truly, what was it important? What was most valuable to me? And that's where I think most people really don't understand or haven't taken the time to really look at what's most important, because something, and I just keep rambling on, tell me to stop whatever you want me to stop.
No,
But there is a process that I call transitioning from a so what to a so that. So like, sure, you have a health side of it, your business, where you're really wanting people to be healthy. And so I ask audiences, do Americans want to be healthy? And a lot of times I get an overwhelming, yes, they do. And I said, then why is McDonald's the #1 restaurant in America? When do Americans want to be healthy? What do Americans really want? Fast, taste good, and cheap. When do they care? When they're sick. But it doesn't mean that we don't have something valuable. We have to transition the health from a so what, eat your vegetables, so what, to a so that. What is the value? What is the result? And a so what element is a period. A so that element is a comma. It becomes the never ending story. And so it's almost like that onion where you keep driving down. And so I focused not on the situation that I was in through the initial MS experience, but where I was going and why I was going there. And the other thing was I had no guarantee what I was doing through my visualization would work. Because at that point, they had nothing to give me in the medical community. They had said, go home, get ready, enjoy your kids for as long as you can, because you're not going to be here.
Well, one thing about that, Gary, that we have a board certified health advocate that partners with us. And her story is about the what if. And I think that there is we talk about the American society, but I think it probably is globally, but I think there's a perspective that nothing's going to happen to me. We don't know about the what if, right? So in the last 6 years, I've had maybe 4 what ifs, like major, maybe not so much me. One of them was mine, but others have been my family, my mother, my kids. We've had multiple what ifs, and had not learned to proactively plan for those circumstances and have a strategic plan to deal with it.
Yes. You know, it's interesting that I call it the oh, by the way. In Australia, there's a bush called the wait a minute bush. And it's almost like the Venus flytrap, where there's an electric current within the plant itself. You get too close to that plant, it has little barbed hooks on the end of the branches. It will actually reach out and grab you and say, wait a minute. That's why they call it the wait a minute bush. And so life has a tendency to do that. And when it happens, we're not planning for it, but if we're not resilient, it could destroy where we are. And having those, or here in Colorado, there's what's called the run out lanes in the mountains for the trucks. They're not expecting to have brakes go out, but when it does, where can they go? Where is that safety valve that, you know, so many people are running so close to the vest that there is no wiggle room when something happens. And so it's
Right.
like a house of cards.
And I think that's absolutely right. And those of you that aren't from Colorado, there was a horrendous accident because of that. But I won't go into the details about that situation. But I do think teaching the skill set at a very young age of having the strategy for the what ifs, or that's my word for it. But teaching the strategy for those things that are going to happen in your life, like you did, Gary, planning ahead, having that extra pilot in the plane. Having your strategy, having the people that you love and your partners in life know where you are, you know, help plan for the worst. Now, I mean, I'm very much an optimist, but at the same time, weird things happen. I mean, I found myself in the middle of golf courses with crocodiles, stupid me. But, you know, I didn't plan my what if. That's another story, Gary. You and I could talk over coffee on that one. But, you know, it's just that I think even at 51, I'm starting to realize, why is it that we don't plan ahead? And why is it we don't strategically plan our lives ahead? And that could be in anything, be it in our careers, in our health strategy, our family planning, our leadership planning, right? Why do we not have a strategy on the wall or something that we plan ahead? We just, I think many of us just kind of let life flow. You know, it's just going to flow, you know, it's just going to happen. But then something like what happened to you happens, right? And but you have the resiliency to deal with it, right?
We're a stimulus society. And what I mean by that is we respond to whatever stimulus is around us. And when we don't have it, well, there's a couple of things too, is that when we look at the different generational models that we have, is that there are some of the younger generational models where the parents, and this is really sense about World War II, where there was an attitude, I always want more for my children than I had. They have more education, more money, more whatever. But it became something to where there's, you know, a flavor of understanding within society that I always win. There are no losers. There's no struggle. There's whatever. And you get into, and my sons always hated me say this, the real world. And it's funny right now because my oldest son is 42 and my youngest is 38 or something like that, 30, whatever they're at. They're older. And now they're using, you know, the real world attitude. Yeah. But when we get into, it's like you cannot learn how to swim without getting wet. You can understand it, but when you actually get into the currents or into the ocean, and sometimes my wife is a psychotherapist and she uses the illustration of the riptides. You can fight the riptide in an ocean, but you'll never win. But if you allow that tide to take you out, go sideways, the opposite stream will bring you back into shore. And we haven't learned how to adjust to the different elements that come at us, whether or not, whatever the news is. I ask audiences a lot, is this a good economy or a bad economy? It doesn't matter. When I was selling real estate in the 1970s, for anyone that remembers what interest rates were back there, but the highest priced loan that I closed was 21%. And there were things called points. We had 10 points, which is another 10%. So the first year cost of that loan literally was 31%. And the average price home at that time, you think about this, Jules, in California, the average price home was $29,000. And, it was like, back in the day, we had about 10 of those now. But, the thing is, I sold over $5 million of real estate that year.
Mm-hmm.
Was it a good economy? And what I really embrace is that all economies are challenging in some way. But if we deal with the economy today that we're dealing with, the way that we did it back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, it's not going to work more than likely. We have to adjust to it, that flexibility.
Yeah, and I think you're talking about a time of when we had inflation, and I think there's a lot of young people in America now that have never experienced inflation and know what it's like. So, yes, it's going to be a learning experience if this gets out of hand, for sure.
Well, and I think it's good that I know that you remember when we were kids. Now I'm an only child, so I spent a lot of time sitting around the table with the older people with my lemonade, and they had their whatever they had in their lemonades. But I just remember sitting around and just hearing and listening and talking about history and things like that. Sadly, I think many of our younger generation, no offense, and I know, Jules, you're the youngest on the team, even though you're not that young, but I would say we do have an amazing history of some hardships in our life, where we went through pandemic kind of circumstances, where we had the country collapse economically, right? But I think a lot of it's in how we're communicating those stories, so we don't really turn off the quote younger generation, because I think sometimes the way we talk about it is a bit old school. I think that we need to change the language and how we communicate things. And I think that there's some very controversial topics out there right now, such as, I hate to say it, vaccination status, political point of views, economy, but we do need to change how we communicate so that we're not just calling each other a bunch of idiots, okay? Because I have actually had some very educational scientists. I have scientists and biologists even in my own family, but we can't just call each other a bunch of idiots. We have to communicate in a way that we help one another understand a different point of view. And I know, Gary, you're all about communication, right?
Truly. And one of the things that I came to understand, and some of it was through the religious side of it, is uniformity does not mean, or unity does not mean conformity. And so we can have the different attitudes. I have every religion, every sexual orientation, men, women, cultures in my business. And it's not a judgment of right, wrong. It's about where are the commonalities and how can we support. And so my belief does not have to become your belief for us to be friends, for us to have relevance to each other. And I think in organizations, sometimes where if you remember the old IBM standard that everybody wears blue suits, red ties, you look the part, and it's just like, really? And now who wears ties anymore? It's just like, but if it's
I wear yoga pants.
Yeah, well, you're in Mexico.
Yeah.
Well, and in this day and age on here, sometimes I'm going to get in trouble. My wife always is saying, how do I get away with what I say? Some people don't wear pants. So all they see is, from here up.
Top up.
But when we start embracing different people, like my clients in South Africa, they lived through apartheid. They're women of color. And so they're sharing this different idea, this different point of view from their side of the lens instead of from a pasty white older guy. And so can I ever truly understand through the experience? No, but I can exchange ideas and have that true empathy for where a person is. and bringing them in without having to adopt whatever that political view, religious view, societal view, whatever it might be. I don't have to change who I am, but have room enough to be able to embrace people for where they are.
Right.
But I think right now diversity is even more of a bigger issue or something to embrace and really understand, because when I was doing my corporate jobs, we had a diversity and inclusion director, very high paid guy, obviously a Black individual. We had a lot of training programs of how we hire. You know, we had a learning and develop a system that talked about diversity. But would you not agree that now, how many years later? Let's see, I left my corporate job in 2016. So, you know, 6 years later, would you not agree that diversity and inclusion is very different today than it used to be 6 years ago?
Well, it is. You know, at my boot camp, my MC is African American, and we're really close. And I had said for years that I don't see color. And we were having breakfast about a year ago. And he goes, I hear you say that, but can I ask you a question? And he goes, do you see Black? Do you see white? I go, yes. He said, so you do see color. And through that discussion, what I came to understand is I don't judge color. And so when we start doing that, whether it be, you know, in the what we wear, our accent, our, you know, the way we look for ethnic, you know, it just, I don't judge it. I wrote I don't know what you want to call it, a poem, a requiem, whatever. I am not educated when it comes to this stuff, but it's the only one I ever wrote. But it was in honor of the veterans, and it's around the world. But I wrote in there, Black, white, green, blue, whatever, we all bleed red. Once we understand the DNA within us is all the same. The little chromosomes that have hair color and skin color and all the other things. But underneath that, the DNA of the human species is the same.
Right.
Otherwise, we start growing 3 heads and whatever. I mean, it's just like, and when we really look at that, we are who we are somewhat because of our environment.
Right.
So what is our religious spirit, you know, all these different beliefs and mores that, you know, was it ours or was it put into us from the outside world? And when we start realizing we have a choice, that's when it gets really fun.
Yeah.
And start challenging, you know, when I was a pastor, the reason that I left the ministry is I'm not real good at regurgitating just because of what somebody wants me to say. I ask questions. And so questions in the religious world is not a really good thing. You know, it just like, you know, it becomes very, you know, tenuous, let's put it that way. But I was a square peg in a round hole. In my whole career now, when I was 20, and I think most of us could relate to this, when we're 20 years old, we knew pretty much everything. And then as we grow older, we start realizing there's more out there. And so the phrase that I use now is the more that I know, the more that I know that I don't know. And instead of looking for an answer, I'm looking for a better question. And then I get to a better question, that answer that leads me to another better question. So it's it's an always evolving understanding that there is more out there and the story behind the story.
So wouldn't you agree though, when you immerse yourself into a multicultural, so obviously I've been living down here for a couple of years, you know, and I've been moving back and forth, you know, obviously I'm in a melting pot. I mean, I've got everything from Mexicans and Swedens and many Canadians. Hello, Canadians, you're everywhere. And every single nationality you can think of. This is like the true new melting pot. But wouldn't you think it helps to immerse yourself into those other cultures? Because I have to tell you, I'm normally a Northern Coloradoan and the no-code kind of girl. And then when I moved to Denver, I suddenly realized, oh my goodness, this is way more diverse, and I wasn't even used to it. And I didn't even realize that I had a personal bias, you know, when I moved to Denver. And now I'm in Mexico and I'm like, my head is like exploding, like, wow, I really had more bias than I had any idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for me, growing up in Southern California, even though it was in Palm Springs, so you'd think it'd be a very, segmented community. It really wasn't. And also playing sports. I think playing football gave me more of that inclusion because we had all of the ethnicity. In fact, Black History Week was initiated. I'm dating myself. Was initiated when I was in high school, and the football players, we would pair up with well, back then it was Hispanics and the Black players and the white players. We would mix and match, and we would escort the teachers to class. But to us, we were a team. We were a team. We were gelling. We all focused and functioned as one, even though we had the differences that were very apparent to everyone else. And when I moved to Colorado, it was really strange to see, like the high school that my kids went to, there was one or two African-American kids. And, one of them was a boy that transferred into the high school with my oldest son that is Puerto Rican. So he was very dark, and he called himself an Oreo, black on the outside, white on the inside. It was just like, really. But to me, I truly I don't see it. My accountant is Hispanic. And when he bought the practice from where I was working with the organization, he told me people were leaving him. And I'm going, why? Why would they do that? He goes, well, I'm Mexican. And I go, and at that moment, after working with him for over 2.5, 3 years, at that moment, I realized he was a Mexican. It did not occur to me. It was like, he goes, you're weird.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
it just, that's not part of the equation. But yeah,
Right.
immersion into other people's, what do they talk about? Walking a mile or in somebody else's moccasins.
Moccasins. Mhm.
It's truly seeing it from their point of view, living in that, when the first time we went to Mexico, to really see how some of the people lived, and it wasn't a show. I mean, it was just like the tin roofs and the shanties and the whatever. And I'm going, wow, how privileged we are. And that goes back to another concept of, for those of us that are living in a privileged society, that we're not grateful.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, may I ask you on just shifting gears a little bit? What are your clients, your leadership clients? What is their biggest challenges right now, do you think, Gary? What do they ask you for the most coaching for right now?
this is going to probably sound a little bit weird, but it's the fear of exposure. And it's not, they're becoming the best kept secret in many ways. In the past, the ivory tower, people could hide in the C-suite, or they could hide back in the back of the storefront and push people out in front. And today, people are wanting to actually engage with the people that they're wanting to relate to. They don't want to see a front man. They don't want to see the veneer. They want the real thing. And so the fear of not being liked, not being, or of being judged. And, you think about politicians where half the country hates them, no matter who they are. That's an industry to really jump into. But the reality is that there are going to be people that are fit, and it's okay. We can, let those people go, and they can go to someone else. But that fear of being seen, because there is, well, in the American culture too, somewhat Western Europe, I'm finding this as well. We have an image. You're supposed to look a certain way. You're supposed to be a certain age. You're supposed to wear the right Rolex or whatever it might be. And in the past, it was much easier to fake it. And today, I think because of our technology, we're much more This is, yeah, I tell people, this is who I am. If you don't like me here, you're probably not going to like me on stage. When I teach speakers, I say, don't have two personas. You know, you be the same on stage as off stage. Be the same out at the restaurant when somebody sees you, or, you know, it's really weird for me to be at a airport and somebody say, hey, Gary. And I'm going, who the heck are you? But when you speak, a lot of people start knowing, you know, they recognize you, but they think you know them because they were in the audience, right? You know,
Yeah.
but if you're not gracious, if you're not real, then, and that becomes the vulnerability.
Mhm.
And I remember Iglesias, Fluffy, the comedian.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the things that he had said on one of his Comedy Central shows was, if you ever see me at a restaurant or at an airport, please come up to me. I'd love to take a picture with you because you are the reason that I'm able to take care of my family.
Hmm.
And
Oh,
so
that is amazing.
I mean, here's this guy, he's tremendous, but he's very touchable. And that's something that I've always, to me, that's part of having a true relationship instead of something that's manipulated.
Yeah,
And so-
so when I was working in corporate, many of our executives were stuck in their offices behind their computer answering 200 to 300 emails a day. And yeah, wearing the Rolexes, sitting behind the executive boardroom, and then the front line, the nurses and the technologists at the front, call them the suits. And if the suits are going to walk through my department, you know, everyone's got to ship up and shape up, and, you know, but they were intimidated by those suits. And then the suits would say, why don't they like me? They don't know me. So I'm sorry, Sam, you're going to say something.
Well, no, I think that was just for our listeners, Gary. I mean, that's as far as those three things for business success, you know, being seen is the number one, right? And but also, as you brought the caveat, it's not just being seen, but it's also being authentic and being humanistic about with your people.
You know, in the past, like, employees were pretty much tools. Organizations only paid them enough to where people would not quit, and the employees would only produce as much not to get fired. It's truly an adversarial system. There was a very large international bank that hired me to come in and do some work within a branch. I won't name the bank, but we turned the branch around and increased productivity over 35% in 30 days with zero absenteeism. When I showcased the manager at the time that these people did not go to work for the bank actually went to work for them. And once we identified the reason, the why, the mission, the purpose why that person was there, now they were excited to go in, and this bank actually fired me because they said they lost the ability to hook the hammer. You better do what we want you to do. You better produce or you're going to get fired. They did not understand. The outcome of that, though, is that this manager is now the Western Regional Sales Director for the entire system, and he's using my program to do it. And so it's still being benefited by it, but it was just, you know, that's that old, like, what, Char, where you're talking about the suits. You know, it's just like, you know, well, who are they? And, you know, here's something else that's interesting. It's some of the statistics that I've been seeing, and I don't have the numbers, so I'm not going to quote something out of the air, but it used to be said that men were holding women down from the C-suite, from really getting into the managerial systems. Now that women have gotten into the C-suite, what has been happening is that they're holding other women down as well.
Yes.
So it's not a gender thing, it's a, you know, a power thing. Is that if I give up some power, then somehow I'm going to be less than or move out from, instead of looking at it is that there's plenty of room for everyone.
Yeah, so you know what, us girls, okay, the new thing is the new Sex in the City and all the girls in their cute little outfits. What is it now? Whatever happened, I don't know the name of the new show now, but it's all about the designer clothes, right? So when I was a corporate girl, yeah, I wore the, I hate to say this, guys, Hillary Clinton jackets, you know, in every single color, you know, so I
Did we
had to
just,
have my every color of the week. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing because I've got a closet full of like every single suit jacket there is. And then for women, it started turning into, from a style perspective, well, now it's the designer clothes, you know, it's the designer handbag and the designer jewelry. And now we got to look so suave and, you know, the nicest, and you can never have the same outfit at ever once throughout the year, right, Jules? I mean, maybe you don't think this way, but again, the employees look at that and they say, who the hell are you? I am in scrubs, man. I'm in scrubs. I got a mask on my face. I am dying here, or I have an apron around my neck. I'm sweating because you have no air conditioning. My shoes, you have no mats on the floor. So my feet hurt. And you're walking around in your fancy jewelry and your fancy suits and your fancy clothes. And you're saying, why can't they understand me as the executive? Right? I mean, seriously, you're so right, Gary. It's like, what are the 3 words that you say about communication? I know that you did this in your first talk with us. The 3 words. Can't remember. Authenticity. I don't remember.
I do so many of them.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway,
Anyway.
it was about getting to know people, having an authentic relationship with people, you know, really connecting with people. That's basically like one of your many, many books that you talked about. And I think now, even more than ever, even now, because I'm a recovering HR person, is what I refer to myself. I call myself Char from HR. I am still from HR, but as I ran my own business, I learned what it really means to run a business, right?
Mhm.
And to start a business from the ground up and become a multi-million-dollar business and have 30 employees and really realize that I needed tools to build the relationships, to communicate with my people. And I also could not be the only face. I mean, my director, my managers, they needed to be coached and mentored and taught how to be a good leader. And it wasn't supposed to be the owner's job to do that, but you know what I mean? So I would say I learned a lot in the last 6 years from my former corporate ways of being a former HR person.
Well, I
So
think one of the things that has changed in the marketplace too, and we're shifting slowly to it, is in the past we told everybody about what they should do, what they should buy, where they should go, and now it's really about listening. Is listening to our coworkers, our people in the, if you're in business, to the marketplace, to other people that are in the industry with you. But it's that hearing the story. I have a passion about hearing people's backstory. Who are they? Not what they do, but who they are, where they came from, where are their fears, desires, goals. But it's not to use that against them to get them to do something I want them to do. It's about having a true conversation. And when you have that, I truly believe that that transition is when you become safe. And when you become safe, that's when relationships can actually start. And relationships are not something that are automatic. It's something that happens over time.
So listening and developing those relationships with your people is quite critical for leaders today. Is that
it's the thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, because if you don't understand where somebody is coming from or what is happening after 5 o'clock, then you may be missing the most valuable asset that that person has. And, you know, if you are there for that person, you're not going to be able to solve all their problems. You don't want to become that Dear Abby, and, you know, you're not the therapist.
Mhm.
But if you don't know that there's something else going on, in fact, one of my new clients is coming on is a single mom with 5 kids. And most people do not know about her backstory. They just see her out in the public, and they don't know what it is to deal with 5 children at all different ages and a, you know, ex-husband and whatever. Another one of my clients is a younger mother from Brazil that expatted up here with triplets. They're 5 years old.
Wow.
And, you know, if you don't have some of those those pieces of information, you don't know how to maximize what it is for their talent within the hive, if you will, without having to change them. I was the co-director of a youth camporee. We brought in 12,000 kids from around the world a number of years ago. And my co-director had this saying, how can I make you successful? And because we were herding cats, because everybody was volunteers. And so, but it was really, what is your core value? What are you really good at? Instead of making somebody good at what they're bad at, let's make somebody excellent at what they're good at. And in that core, now you're positioning people for success. And out of that, it is the ultimate result. It's particularly in the corporate world, you're judged by the earnings for that particular year or that department or whatever. But so many people lose great people just because they're not recognized for what they are able and where their genuine talents lie.
So Gary, I think that reminds me of the story you tell of the flying secret that geese tell us. Do you recall that?
Oh yeah. It's a very old story where the lead goose is not always the lead goose. There are times that they keep changing places and you're able to go farther. And so for me, like I'm as happy being in the audience as I am on stage. I enjoy both. I have a group coaching program where I call it the Q&A mastermind, where I'm the moderator. I do a lot of the responses to the questions, but there are things that inside that group, there are people that are much more adept and in understanding and more valuable to answer the question than me. Well, it's not about a me, it's a we. And that doesn't disempower any of them, anyone. Now, here's the caveat though. If you're the leader, you still have to be the leader. Yeah. There is no way to please everyone. And so whatever the vision.
But as a leader, you don't have to have all the answers. That's right. The thing. It's knowing how to leverage the strength of your team and all the folks around you and knowing when to reach out, which so often people feel like, oh, I have to do everything.
Well, the old story of Henry Ford, when his sons were they took him to court because they said he was old and senile, he didn't know how to do anything. And the judge looked at, Henry Ford and said, sir, can you tell me how the car is built? And he goes, no. He goes, well, how can you know? He goes, there's buttons on my desk and I push the button for engineers and they tell me, they know. And the accounting, they know. And the judge said, you're saying, because he had this team of advisors around, but he was the one that birthed the company and he had the vision. Without that vision, the people perish. Going back to some of those things where sometimes you'll see an organization and they lose that or they get diluted in what they do. And so the general public no longer sees them as being viable and useful.
Yeah, I like in your story about the geese that you're talking about flying in V formation, and of course having that organized structure where you have those people behind you that are the experts that are driving your way forward in the vision for the company. So it's very powerful.
And for me, I could not do what I do without a team.
Yeah,
there are people that do the things that I really hate doing. I tease, it's actually true. They don't allow me to have any of my login information, my codes, nothing, because they know that I'll break it, and I don't want it. But there's redundancy behind me. It's like being on stage. There are times when the sound system goes down or there's other things going on. My job is to address the audience. That's where my gift is. Not to go and get upset. And I've had sound people come to me and say, thank you for not yelling at us, because other people from stage have done that when things have gone wrong. Why would I yell at you? You're the one that can save me. I have no idea what you're doing. You go do your thing and I'm going to still do mine. And so when we have that attitude, and like what Howard said, it really is that cumulative, because as we grow, there's no way for us to really do it on our own. And when we're smaller, that is the big transition, is to trust others in different areas for them to do what we need them to do or what they say they can do.
Well, great.
Well,
I know we're approaching the top of the hour here. I did want to acknowledge our sponsor and I'm prepared to take questions. So Jules, if you can reach out and see if anybody is interested in have any questions for Gary, as I go through our sponsors here.
Drop them out. We've got a few more minutes, and but we haven't had any questions pop up, Gary, but we have had some really great feedback. Gary, can we clone you?
Yeah.
From Daniel. And right from the first word you spoke today, that Daniel had to put his desk phone on Do Not Disturb. It's been very enlightening, engaging, and informative. So I love that. And I was like, well, it looks like we might have to bring him back again.
Of course. Yes, Gary is filled with wisdom. So that's why it's so great to have you share that with us, Gary. So I just want to acknowledge our sponsor, the TMA method, and part of the people strategy forward, and why we are our mission here is to understand our people better, understand what makes them tick, what they love to do, what their passions and talents are, and what they want to do in their career, so we can inspire them to be happy at our organization and also keep them engaged for the long term. So the TMA method is definitely a tool that will help you learn more about your people. And if you're interested in seeing what the TMA method is for yourself, feel free to reach out to me at any time at support@compteam.net. Also, I want to acknowledge our speaker for next week, which is Anne-Marie Cantor. And so Anne-Marie Cantor I've known her for years, and we've worked at BlackRock together years ago, and at Barclays. She's been a people strategist and an HR professional for over 20 years now, and she's going to talk to us about how HR can really make a difference, to be a true business partner to the business, to inspire them to go forward in the right directions and guide them as an advisor. So looking forward to hearing more from Anne-Marie next week. Until then, so Gary, tell us a little bit more about the workshops that you have every year, and what are those like? I mean, we were talking in the pre-show about right now as an international speaker, you've inspired people around the globe, and they come to your workshop of once a year, travel to Denver. Tell us a little bit about what that looks like.
Well, we've expanded it now, since it's a one time a year, to a 4-day event. And the Thursday event is really bringing in experts in a number of different disciplines to share, whether it be building relationships, leadership, topics, technical, getting into funnels, how to build your CRM, and, all the different aspects of running an organization or building an organization, whether it be a small one or a large one. My clients are from startup businesses to manufacturing firms, so it's really a diverse practice. The first day of the boot camp where I'm involved is on Friday, and I call it Foundation Day, because I believe that 80% of success in any business is psychological and emotional. And this is something that is not taught. It's staying in the game. It's knowing how to communicate, knowing why we do what we do. It's a lot of the things that we were talking about earlier. And at the end of that day, we do something, the boot camp is called Breakthrough Business Mastery. And at the end of day one, we do board breaking. We have an 8th degree black belt Taekwondo champion that's been a buddy of mine forever. And we put everybody through the board break. And it's not a have to, but the youngest person we've ever had do it was a 6-year-old, and the oldest was an 83-year-old lady. So it's not just this guy is so good. But the Foundation Day, then on Saturday, we get into the strategies, techniques of everything that I have done to build my businesses. And it's all programs and areas that is mine. You're not going to be able to find it in any other book or whatever. Now, the topics are going to be very similar: time management, branding, marketing, all of those type things. But how to be seen, I call it the 3 magic words. But it's through the proprietary systems that I've created around those topics. And so everything I teach is out of my practical experience of over 40 years of building businesses. And then on Sunday, we bring it all together, and we also do speak off. That's where we have audience members that volunteer to come up on stage and do a 2-minute rendition of something, and then we give them feedback, and they see the transformation on stage. But it's really a full package to where my whole goal is when somebody comes, if I never ever meet them again, ever, that the investment of time, money, and energy, which is really, focal point for me, is to honor that they can change their life and their business on Monday morning. So they can take the pieces that are relevant to them and implement it. It's really content driven. And because of that, we have had people come back 25, 30 times. And people say, are you not a good trainer, or are they just slow? And the reality is, every time they come back, they're in a different place. So they're hearing different things. And we do different. I think you can tell I'm a little bit expressive. I get bored doing the same. I do my trainings this way. I'll have one word and I'll talk about that one word for a half an hour. And it's whatever comes out. So there's always a variable that's put into it. And because of that, it becomes very relevant. The other side is that the networking inside of these rooms are amazing. People are doing business, people are building relationships, friendships. And so it's become somewhat of a family reunion that happens. In fact, this little sculpture behind me, they gave me last year my 40th event, where they said, you're the one on the bottom holding the ladder, and there's someone that is achieving and somebody else is climbing. And then my thing is that the person at the top then goes and holds the ladder.
Yeah.
So it's not the Gary show. And so that is, it's become a labor of love, and I don't see stopping anytime soon. But yeah, we're doing it once a year now. It'll be in September.
Great.
I love it.
And how can people learn more about that as far as and sign up?
Breakthroughbusinessmastery.com. And breakthroughbusinessmastery.com is just simple. I mean, people can always reach out to me individually for whatever, Gary at GaryBarnesInternational.com. And there's something else that I started doing since the last time I was here. I don't think I did this yet. I have something I started. This is what I call the pink spoon. You go to 31 flavors, they give you a pink spoon, and you go in and test things out. Because the other thing that I started realizing is that the commonality of what people are engaging with or buying from us the first time they buy is borrowed belief. And nobody has really identified that I know of in the marketplace, because they're believing us that our product, service, our job, whatever we're promising is going to be real on the other side of the fence. And so the pink spoon for me is freegiftfromgary.com. And I invite anyone to come on to my group coaching program that I do twice a month on Zoom for free for 30 days.
That's great.
And so that's just available to anyone. And it is an international program. So the community is really interesting and really supportive. So anybody who would like to take advantage of that, that'd be great. But we'd love to see you guys in September.
Gary.com. I've got that free gift from Gary.com. I'm just typing it into the chat forever. Okay.
Yep, freegiftfromgary.com.
Awesome.
That's great, Gary. Well, thank you once again for just such a wonderful conversation and sharing your wisdom. It's always such a pleasure to have you on the People Strategy Forum.
Well, it's my honor, truly. You guys are phenomenal. This program, I watched you guys grow up too, and evolve, and now look at the impact that you're having. And if it's not for your type of program out here, people will just be what I call wandering in the wilderness. And being that resource, that's that give back. When I started out in business, nobody wanted to share, because everybody felt like if I shared with you, then you became a competition, and then you took things away from me. And the ability now to be able to hand out and share, where you were talking about the younger generation, I honor Jules. I mean, it's just like, I want that baton to carry on. There's a point where I'm not going to be here. That's not really depressing. Well, it might be for me, but you know, yeah, but the reality is, if we don't pass on what we have and embrace the talents that are behind us, then what are we doing? What are we doing it for?
That's right.
And so you guys are just phenomenal. I enjoy it every time I'm here.
Thanks, Gary. All
Thank
right.
you.
Well, thank you everyone for your time this week. We're looking forward to another great conversation next week. Once again, thank you again, Gary. It's been a pleasure, and we'll catch up soon.
Yeah, we'll be ready for the 6th appearance.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.